Good evening, everyone. This week's Parsha is Parsha's Vayera, Tavshin Pei Beis. I dedicate tonight's learning in memory of my mother, Mrs. Shalamas Rabinowitz, Shalamas Bas Rebecca of Eliezer, our learning Shemin Aliyah for her neshama. So I'd like to share with you a few thoughts on the first pasuk, the first verse of this week's Parsha. Vayera Elav Hashem Be'elonei Mamre, and God appeared to him, referring to Hashem appearing to Avraham after having a bris milah, after having his bris. Hashem appeared to him Be'elonei Mamre, in the plains of Mamre. He was sitting at the opening of his tent, at the door of his tent, at the heat of the day. The commentaries all wonder. It says that Hashem appeared to him, but it doesn't say what Hashem said to him. It just says Hashem appeared. What was the nature of this appearance? What was the message? So Ramban Nachmanides has a very interesting explanation. And the explanation that he gives here is something that he goes through many different places in the Torah to explain a similar phenomenon. So here the Ramban writes, this revelation of the divine presence to Avraham was all as an honor to him. As we find when it came to the construction of the Mishkan, construction of the tabernacle. It says that the Mishkan, the tabernacle had been completed. Moshe and Aaron went out and they blessed the people, and the honor of Hashem appeared to all the nation. What was the point there? It says the Ramban, because of all their efforts in constructing the Mishkan, they merited to be able to see, to have a revelation of the divine presence. The revelation of the Shekhinah here and here, meaning here by the Mishkan and here in our Parsha, mitzvah, there was no purpose to give them a mitzvah, to give them a commandment, or the Dibra Klal, or for some kind of message. Elogamul ha-mitzvah, hanasis kavar. It's a reward for the mitzvah that had been performed, and to show that God was very pleased with their actions. That's what it's about. There's no message here. There's no message. It's a reward. Avraham just did the mitzvah bris milah. Hashem is showing how happy he was with Abraham's mitzvah, what Avraham did. And how does he show his pleasure with what Avraham did? He appears to him. And that's what happened by the Mishkan. The Mishkan had a revelation of Hashem's presence to show the Jewish people how pleased Hashem was with their efforts in making the Mishkan. Then he goes to another example. V'chein b'Yaakov. We find the same thing by Yaakov. Omar v'yifku v'malachei Elokim v'ein sham dibur v'lo shechidshu v'davar v'akshazach l're'iyas malachei Elyon v'yada ki ma'aser ritzuyim. At the end of Parshas Vayetze, Yaakov had left his father-in-law Lavan, and he was about to re-enter the land of Israel. And the Pesukim say that Yaakov met angels. And he called the place Machanayim camps because he met camps of angels. What was the point of these camps of angels? Doesn't say. Says the Ramban, same idea. The revelation of those angels is to show Yaakov that Hashem was pleased with his actions. Now the Ramban doesn't say this, but I would suggest that what was happening here, to suggest a little bit more that's happening here, following the Ramban's approach, and that is that Hashem is saying to Yaakov that after 20 years by Lavan, I'm still pleased with you. I am still pleased enough with you that I reveal myself to you, that I send angels to you. It's been a long time, 20 years by Lavan, not a simple thing. Yaakov himself wasn't sure, as we see in Parshas Vayishlach, about himself and what kind of influence, what kind of mark being by Lavan had left on him. Hashem sent him the angels to say, now that you're about to enter the land of Israel, I am very pleased with you, Yaakov. 20 years of being by Lavan hasn't harmed you. And you're worthy of a revelation of Hashem's divine presence. Okay. So too, Hashem appearing to Avraham here is about a merit and it's about a promise of goodwill. Now, another example the Ramban gives to explain, or another case in the Torah. V'chein amru, so too they said, our sages say, Vayera de hayam, regarding those who went down into the sea, the Jewish people who entered the Red Sea, and the Red Sea had split for them. Sha'amru zeh keli ba'anveyu, where they said, this is my God and I shall adorn him, or I shall build for him a sanctuary. But they said, zeh keli, this is my God. That was a revelation of God's presence. And our sages say, Ro'asa shivchal hayam, even just the maidservant saw by the Red Sea, what the prophet Ezekiel didn't see, the prophet Yechezkel, he prophesied about what's called the Merkava, Hashem's chariot, one of the most deep and revealing prophecies about what goes on in heaven, something that we don't have too much of a grasp in. But this is what Yechezkel prophesied about. And a maidservant saw more of God, saw more of the divine presence than Yechezkel did at the splitting of the Red Sea. And we find questions that are asked there. What's going on? What kind of revelation is going on by the Red Sea? There's a miracle there, fine. But what is happening that we say this, that a maidservant has a revelation of God greater than the prophet Yechezkel? Here again, this is a merit for them, for the fact that they displayed their belief and faith in Hashem and in Moshe. And what was the reward for that? A revelation of Hashem's divine presence. Fascinating explanation. Excuse me. Okay. Now, sometimes we find that Hashem will reveal his presence at a time of anger. The Pasuk tells us in the desert that the Jewish people were threatening to stone Moshe and Aaron. When they didn't have food, they threatened to stone Moshe and Aaron. And then it says the honor of Hashem appeared at the Oil Moed to all of the Jewish people. There, again, it's not about a message, but it's about showing the Jewish people, don't touch Moshe and Aaron. Again, it's about the merit of Moshe and Aaron, that the divine presence comes there to protect them. Another example of where there's no message, there's no mitzvah given, there's no specific, Hashem doesn't speak to anybody there, but it's there in honor of the righteous. Then the Ramban continues, Parsha. Now the fact that, we have a separation, we have two separate parshas here. We have last week's Parsha, talks about the bris milah of Abraham. Then there's a break. Now our Parsha begins. That doesn't make a difference, says the Ramban, that there's some kind of separation to say that this is a continuation about Avram's bris milah, because it's a continuity. It's a connection. And therefore, it doesn't say Hashem appeared to Avram, which would have meant that this is a new thing, it's a new subject, a new start. There it says no, Hashem appeared to him. It's continuing from the end of last week's Parsha. It's a continuum from that. This Vayera, this appearing, is all about showing Abraham Hashem's pleasure in what he did, in the mitzvah bris milah that he did. So the fascinating Ramban in how he explains so many places in the Torah where Hashem reveals the divine presence, but there's no message there. There's no talking. There's no mitzvah given. It's all about a show of honor to those people that are involved. And in our case, by Abraham, Hashem appearing to him is where Hashem shows Abraham, I'm pleased with the bris milah that you did. When Hashem's divine presence appears by the construction of the Mishkan, it's Hashem telling the Jewish people, I'm pleased with your actions. And when at the splitting of the Red Sea, when there was this tremendous revelation, what's that all about? Same idea. Hashem is showing the Jewish people, when the miracle is taking place, how pleased he is. And what it merited is the fact that they had their faith and trust in Hashem and in Moshe. That's the Ramban's explanation here. The Orach Chaim on these words has a similar explanation, but with a different twist. And he begins with a very interesting question. The pasuk begins, Vayera elav Hashem. Hashem appeared to him. Now, literally, it's Vayera, and he appeared to him, Hashem. Okay. Now, says Arachayim, the order should really be Vayera Hashem elav. You know, in the dictic and the grammar of the Torah, or in Hebrew grammar, you've got the verb before the noun. Okay, so it doesn't say Hashem, it says Vayera, it says the verb, and he appeared. Okay, Hashem elav, that's how it should be. It should say Hashem before Avram, and then it's Hashem appeared to Avram. Here, but that's not the way it says here. It says, and he appeared to him, Hashem. Not the way that it should be. That's not the way it should be laid out. Says the Arachayim, and we find in other places otherwise. Perek Yud Beis Pasuk Zayin, chapter 12, verse 7. Vayera Hashem el Avram lazaracha atain. Hashem appeared to Avram. It says Hashem before Avram. In other places we find that also, which is a Perek Yud Zayin Pasuk Aleph. Also, Vayera Hashem el Avram. It's Hashem says Hashem appeared to Avram. And here we have, instead of it saying Hashem to Avram, it says to him Hashem. Question number one. Question number two, what's the nature of this revelation of Hashem's divine presence here? Says the Ramban. It says the Arachayim. V'nira ki kavanas hakasavu sheba lo haidiah shehishra Hashem shchinasei alav v'naseh merkava l'shchina. The pasuk is telling us here that Hashem rested the divine presence on Avraham, and he became a chariot for the divine presence of Hashem. The Timsa Shamruzal, and we find that our sages say, Sha'aves merkava l'shchina, the Avos, our fathers, the patriarchs, are the chariot for the Shechina. Whatever that means exactly, it means that Hashem's divine presence rests constantly on Avraham. The Ramban Nachmanides' introduction to the book of Shemot says is that the building of the Mishkan and the Shechina resting in the Mishkan of the tabernacle was really bringing back to the Jewish people what existed by Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that the Shechina rested in their homes, in their tents, on a regular basis. The Mishkan was to bring the Jewish people back to that state, because the Avos were the Merkava, the chariot for the Shechina. That's what happened to Avram here. Once Avraham did the bris milah, he became a chariot. Hashem's divine presence rested on him regularly, constantly. That's why it says, appear to him before Hashem. Alav hashchina, ma shaloi nishma b'amru vayera Hashem elav. If it would have said, Vayera Hashem elav, Hashem appeared to him, then it would have just said, Hashem appeared to him. Abraham is having a revelation. He's seeing a revelation. But by saying appeared to him, Hashem, that means to say the appearance and Abraham are one. They go together. Because this appearance, this revelation of divine presence was to him or on him, because now the Shechina would be resting on Avraham on a regular basis. Because the Merkavi is a chariot for the Shechina. And now there are Arachayim, and comes to answer another interesting nuance in that we find. From now on, by all the other times that Hashem speaks to Avraham, there's no more mentioning of Vayera, Hashem appeared. Elavayomer Hashem, ki matzuhi lefanav ateres l'roshai. I'm sorry. The word Vayera Hashem appeared does not appear by any of the prophecies by Abraham anymore. Hashem, it just says Hashem spoke. Ki matzuhi lefanav, because Hashem is there by him, atara l'roshai, a crown for his head. As mentioned before, it says Hashem appeared to Abraham and spoke with him. No more mentioning of appearances anymore, because there's no more need for revelation. The revelation of the Shekhinah is constant by Abraham. All Hashem now needs to do is to speak to him. So this Arachayim also comes to answer what was this revelation about. And again, not about a mitzvah, not about speaking to him, but Arachayim takes it to the point that now this was what Hashem rested Abraham here. It means he rested on him and rested on him on a consistent basis. With that, he explains the changing of the order of the words of Vayera Elav Hashem, when it should have said Vayera Hashem Elav. And again, the fact that until now, all prophecies to Abraham are prefaced with Vayera Hashem appearing. And from now on, you don't find it anymore because there's no more need for that anymore. He's a chariot for the Shekhinah. Shekhinah is always there. So it's very interesting how the Arachayim takes these different nuances that we find in the words of the Torah and how he puts it all together in such a beautiful way. Next thing I want to share with you is something that Rashi brings down. The Torah says Hashem appeared to Abraham be'Eloinei Mamre in the plains of Mamre. The Torah is telling us where, why. What is it relevant for us to know where this happened? So Rashi says, Hushanasan lo eitza al hamila, because Mamre gave him advice about the bris milah, lefikach nigla alav b'chelkai, and therefore it was in his area, in his property, that Hashem appeared. Now, in last week's Parsha, we were introduced to Abraham's Anshe Brisai, people he had a covenant with, a treaty with. They were his compatriots. Oner, Eshkol, and Mamre. They were Canaanites, but they were his allies. And when Abraham had to go fight the 4 kings to free Lot, Oner, Eshkol, and Mamre fought with him. Now, Elone Mamre, the plains of Mamre, means the plains of one of these 3 people, his area. Why is the Torah telling us this? Says Rashi, because Mamre gave him advice about the bris milah, and because of that, Hashem rewarded Mamre for the advice that he gave him. Okay, now Rashi, what's cited for Rashi sources, Bereshis Rabbah, the Medrash Rabbah, Medrash Tanchuma says it like this: Mamre, why in the plains of Mamre? Hashem's name be blessed because he doesn't hold reward from anyone. Avraham had 3 friends, Oner, Eshkol, and Mamre, as we just mentioned. Once Hashem told Avraham to have a bris milah, to circumcise himself, he went to ask them for advice. Now, right away, the question all the commentaries ask, what kind of advice does Abraham need about the bris milah? What kind of advice? Hashem told him to do it. What's the question? Let's continue. Halach eitzel Oner. So he went to Oner. Omar kach v'kach amar li HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem told me this and this. He told me to circumcise myself. Amar li Oner. Oner said to him, Baal mum reitza ato la'seischa. You want to make yourself a blemished person? You want to injure yourself? So that now the relatives of the kings that you killed, they're going to come and kill you. You don't want to, and you're not going to be able to run away from them. How can you do that? How can you have a bris milah? You're going to have a bris milah. You're going to be weak. If they attack you, you're not going to be able to run away from them. And we actually find later on in the Torah that's what happened by the city of Shechem. So Oner says, what are you doing? You're gonna injure yourself, and your enemy is going to attack you. You're not going to be able to go. You're not going to be able to do anything. Sounds like Oner is telling him not to do it. He left him. Eshkol. Then he went to Eshkol. Omar Loi, Eshkol said. Oh, sorry. So Avram said to Eshkol, Kach v'kach amar li HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what Hashem told me. Amar Loi Eshkol. Eshkol said to him, Ata zakein, you're an old man. Imata tumul, if you're going to circumcise yourself, Yetzim mechad dam harbe, you're going to lose a lot of blood. Leituchal lisbol, you won't be able to tolerate it. But Thomas, you're going to die. This is what Eshkol says to him. Also, it sounds like he's saying to him, you can't do this. You're going to kill yourself. He left him, and then he went to Mamre. Omar loy kach v'kach Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mati atzeni. Hashem told me this. What's your advice? Omar loy Mamre said to him, but davar hazat mavakish etza. You're asking for advice about this? Hashem saved you from the burning furnace when Nimrod tried to kill Abraham to force him to worship idols. And Abraham said, I'm willing to give up my life. He was thrown into the burning furnace and he was saved. He made for you all the miracles. And he saved you from the kings. And if not for Hashem's strength and might, they would have killed you. He saved your 248 limbs. And over part of one limb, you're asking for advice? Do what he says. That was what Mamre said. You, Mamre, you gave him advice, you encouraged him to do the bris milah. I'm going to reveal myself to him in your area. And that's what it means. Vayera Hashem Mamre. This all happened in the plains of Mamre. Now, Avram is asking advice, which we don't know what the advice exactly is. The responses of all three seem to be revolving around do it or not. Honor says you're making yourself a lame duck in front of your enemies. Eshkol says you're going to bleed to death. Mamre says, what's the question? Asay k'mitzvasay, do like he wants you, do like his commandment. So the discussion seems to be a discussion about doing this or not. But that's Avram's question? Whether I should do it or not? That couldn't be Avram's question. Of course he's going to do it. What's he asking them? So the commentary of Anaf Yosef and Medrash Tanchuma says the following, that Avraham was really testing his friends. He was testing to see what kind of friends are they really. And he went to them and he said, Hashem told me to do this. What do you think? And, what do you think? So Unner says, no, that makes no sense. How could you do this? You're going to be a lame duck in front of your enemies. Eshkol says you're going to bleed to death. They're discouraging him from doing the mitzvah. And Mamre says, what are you talking about? You're going to be harmed from this? If Hashem has saved you from harm in the most miraculous ways, and now you're afraid about what's going to happen by one limb? Avram was testing them, says the Anaf Yosef. How would they react? Honor and Eshkol didn't react properly to the mitzvah, and Mamre did. And again, the way Avram puts it to them, he seems to be saying to them, should I do it? And that's what he was trying to do. He was testing them. And the first two reacted negatively. Mam reacted positively. And therefore Hashem says to him, you reacted positively to this mitzvah. You gave the advice to go for it. Not that he needed advice, but you gave him the advice, you gave him the encouragement. This is going to be your reward. So that's what Yosef says. Avram is not looking for real advice. He's testing his friends to see what will be the reaction. So I'd like to add to this the following. And why was he testing them now? Why now test them? And perhaps the answer is because Abraham now at Bris Milah, by now changing his body, was making a very strong statement now that he is different than everybody else. And now at this point of time, the Anaf Yosef says that if he saw that they told him not to do the mitzvah, that means he's not going to do anything. He doesn't want to have anything to do with them anymore. And that's really the wording of the Medrash Tanchuma. He left them and went. Could be that means he left him. That's it. He's done with him. And then he was done with Eshkol. Mamre encouraged him for the mitzvah, and therefore he stayed with him. And not only did he stay with him, because he was with him, Hashem had the revelation of his Shekhinah to him in his property. So let's get back again. Why was he testing now? Because of the fact that, again, what were they, now that Abraham is making himself so different, and he's saying, I'm different than everybody else, what would their reaction be? How would they feel about it? how would they accept it or not? Because if Avram is going to continue being with them, they need to accept that he is different. They need to accept that he's been chosen by Hashem, and that he's good, that he is different. And he wanted to see the reaction. If they accept it, then we continue having connection, we continue having a relationship. If not, he's gone. Oner, Eshkol, both say, "What are you doing? You're crazy. You're gonna hurt. You're endangering yourself." At the end of the day, that's the reaction to what Hashem wants Avram to do. That's the reaction to Avraham being different. They don't want him to be different, and they say, and their reaction to it is reaction of, "Don't do it. You're gonna kill yourself. You're gonna hurt yourself." But if that's their reaction to Hashem's mitzvah, then that means they don't have the proper attitude, the proper feeling towards what Hashem wants from Avraham. And once Avraham sees that, no more. Mamre, on the other hand, showed that he accepted what Hashem wanted, that Avraham should be different. And therefore, Avraham continued his relationship with him. And not only that, he was rewarded that Hashem revealed himself to Avraham in his property. Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful evening.